Thank you. All right. Well, first off, hi. My name is Michael. I choose he, him pronouns, and you can find pretty much everything that you might want to know about me at bio.link/Michael Lowe, which I'll put in the chat. But you can also find me at luckoflegends.com. You can find me at storiesrpg.com. Oops, I'm putting these in direct chat with Catherine, which is not helping anyone else. Here we go. I'll do that again. bio.link/Michael Lowe. You can find me at luckoflegends.com and at storiesrpg.com. So I'm a lot of things. I am a 20-year classroom veteran. I've done a lot of curriculum design, and I've taught English language arts for all of my career in the classroom. I've taught all ages and all grades for different schools and also for different companies. So I've got a broad range of experience. Luna Uni is a tabletop RPG using the Stories RPG engine, which I created, that is designed for classroom use. And I have a whole bunch of people using it right now and getting exciting results. So I'll jump down. These are some of the other teachers. They're listed here, and I'll share this presentation with everyone as well. So if you want to look over it later on, you're more than welcome to. This is the reason I created Luna Uni. So school, the idea of the word gamification to me is it's kind of silly. Gamification is a silly concept because you can't gamify a game. School already is a game. When we talk about gamification, what we're really talking about is redesigning that game to make it more effective, because the problem with school is that it's a very broken game, in the sense that a good game is fun and it incentivizes engagement from the people who it's designed for, right? Unfortunately, school is designed for a lot of things, but very rarely is it designed for the players, students. So I often say the best teachers are game designers. And by nature, that's what we do, is the same thing, right? It's experience design for a particular audience, right? So school is very badly designed for the players because grades are subjective, oftentimes very badly explained, and rules change from room to room. Nothing could be worse in a game than having the rug pulled out from you and the rules changing the minute you change where you are. Parents and teachers are the audience for the skills. Students are very rarely performing for one another, which means that their academic success isn't something that feels socially compelling. And that last thing, A and F students know the same secret. I like to think, and I'll put this broadly, but I often think F students are more emotionally mature than A students. And I'll explain. This is in my experience. There's this bimodal curve. Both A students and F students know that school is an arbitrary game. A students come in with the determination that they are going to win. This is a game, it doesn't make any sense, but I'm going to get all the points and I'm going to win this game. Now, sadly, that often leads to A students who are very nervous. When they graduate, you'll find a lot of A students, and I had this with a lot of my students who were incredibly successful in their high school career, their secondary education career, would get into their freshman year of college and very quickly start failing. And part of the reason was that if you asked these students, when they came into your room, they would say, "How do I get an A?" And when you asked them, "What would you like to learn?" they would look at you with this utterly confused look on their face, because that wasn't what they were here to do. They were here to win the game with points. They didn't understand it as a process in which they would be learning and mastering skills that mattered to them and allowed them to choose pathways they'd like their life to take. F students, on the other hand, very often had just the same understanding, but the opposite reaction. They were like, okay, this is a dumb game. I am going to save all of my energy and resources for things that I actually care about and that matter to me and that reward me in ways that I care for. They often would also have had the experience of having really negative feedback in school. They'd, go to school, try, get an F, and feel terribly insulted. I've been told I'm bad at this. I've been told I'm stupid. I've decided this has no win condition for me, and it has a lot of lose condition. Therefore, I don't want to play this game. So I often think that that was an emotionally intelligent decision by a lot of F students. The game had been so badly designed that they opted out, which, you know, taking your ball and going home is reasonable when you don't enjoy the game, right? So this particular approach was born out of that understanding. Couple things. It's a flexible and modular system that is focused on story, and it's also focused on centering how to think like an author, how to think sort of in two modes. I call them avatar mode and author mode. The point is collaboration and telling a great story. The point is not to win. I'd been using this online and saw huge wins, giant levels of academic improvement, kids feeling deeply motivated to write hundreds of pages. I have a 300-page novel that kids were writing together for 2 years. It's brilliant and lovely and fun and funny. Socio-emotional skills. I had students who went from struggling to speak in class to being active leaders who, even though they were quiet and very introverted, led through their writing, and the other students would look to them for guidance. I had kids connect in ways that made me as a classroom teacher kind of shocked. One of the primary things you want as a classroom teacher is classroom culture. You want to build a culture in which students support one another and collaborate towards goals together. This did this in a way that I'd never seen. Portfolio writing meant that kids both got into writing as a process, but also writing as a way to mark their own improvement. So instead of feeling judged by results, they felt very proud. Oh yeah, I remember when I was not using any dialogue. Now look here, I no longer even use dialogue words. There's no said or asked because I'm always describing what a character's face looks like or what they're doing as they speak to add that extra level of detail. And they can articulate that at a meta level. The final piece is play space. I think a lot about agency. There are a lot of people in education who talk about student agency. We need to give kids agency over their learning. But a lot of us are honestly afraid of giving students agency. We worry that if they have control over their learning, somehow we will lose the ability to guide them or to redirect the room if things get tough. This was a way in which kids had complete ownership of their learning, even though they were practicing academic skills that obviously older people had already mastered. The world belonged to them, and therefore the game was theirs. And that made the writing gains and also all of the play really theirs. By the way, if anyone would like, please feel free to interrupt at any point, ask questions, drop them in the chat. I will respond. Oh, and there's chat things. Oop. We have a notepad. Oh, okay, got you. Okay. So feel free, though, to interrupt. I won't feel that it's an interruption. I'll be excited to chat with you. So before I go any further, here's some results. All this art is from my artist, Chris Schoens. You can find him at Chris Schoens, S-C-H-O-N-S. He's the parent of a student who loved Luna Uni and got excited. And when I kickstarted the tabletop RPG, he agreed to do some of the work in return for allowing his student to keep taking classes for free, which seemed like a great deal for all of us. So it's a work swap. So here's some of the results that have been seen in the classroom approach, because that was the thing. This was my experience with small groups online, which is where I've been teaching for the last 5 years. I got some playtest teachers. Here's what they had happen. So we have a five column rubric. So this was 2 classes of 5th grade students. That's about 9-10 years old. And this was March to May of 2023, just the spring. This included neurodivergent. IEP means individualized education plan. These are students who have particular student needs. 504 means, in the US, students with socio-emotional struggles. And ESL, second language learners in English. So you'll notice the median and mean growth, say 37.5, but if you look at the actual scores, this is growth on the rubric. The overall growth was actually double. So it's almost 100% growth. And that is in every individual category and also overall. This is for the spring of 2024. This doesn't include the fall. They're deep in it. My favorite quote from Tom, who is now teaching this for his second year, is, "I will stop teaching this way when kids stop liking games." That was the classic quote that he gave me, which made my heart sing. So same thing. You see very similar results, almost doubling in score growth, actually a full double. And again, on the rubric, a median and mean growth of over 34%. Student survey data, massively agree in terms of being confident, liking writing, helping connect with other students, and if they could, they'd continue using this approach to learn writing. Here's some of their quotes. Yeah, I love these. They make my day every time I read them. Parent data as well. Parents heard about this at home. In fact, one of my favorite things was that Tom would get messages from parents over vacations, and they would say, "Listen, my kid wants to write. Are they allowed to? Like, did you assign something?" And he'd say, "I didn't assign anything, but they can write as much as they'd like." But the parents were honestly confused because they'd never seen their children actively, excitedly writing on something before, and were totally blown away by that. So here are some of the things the parents said, all very positive. And finally, things that teachers said would be the last piece. This is the part that really, as a teacher, I'm a parent too, but as a teacher, I know how hard it can be and how much of a struggle it can be to really feel that you are serving your students and also keep your own emotions positive and warm and all the ways in which they need to be in order for you to be a good teacher, right? So bringing fun back to the classroom for teachers, helping teachers learn with their students and feel excited and surprised and delighted by what their students do was really important to me. And the other piece is seeing students who struggle really succeed. So Thomas had students for whom this is their first time in an English classroom. And they went from using Google Translate to make their stories to writing their first sentences in English using Luna Uni and loving it. We've had students with serious cases of spectrum disorder who have gone from feeling very isolated and crying every time they had to write in class to actively being excited to go to writing class and asking for more time to write. So it's been a huge success, and we've been really excited to see the way it's affected both students and teachers and sort of the classroom community as a larger community, including parents. So how it works. This is a huge piece. Mechanics matter. You cannot simply take a role-playing game and shoehorn it into a classroom situation. If you do, it's the same problem that you run into with regular school. If you use a game that's not designed for a particular audience, it won't work. If you use it out of context, it won't work. So I had to really think, how do I make a game that supports students? Here's how we did it. So lore versus live. All of the sessions in Luna Uni are either labeled lore sessions or live sessions. Lore sessions are kind of like a writer's group. Students are working together, writing stories in a Google slide deck about both their characters and also the larger world, and then reading those aloud to share them with the rest of the class and self-assessing how they feel they did on this particular assignment and getting challenges from the teacher on, hey, for your next story, you can have an extra story point if you blah, blah, blah. I'll talk about story points in a bit. The second piece is live sessions. These are what we classically think of in a role-playing game as a live role-playing session, with some significant differences. This is a place where some of the kids who feel more comfortable talking, but maybe less comfortable writing, get a chance to shine. Lore sessions are also great because they let a lot of the introverted students who have less fun during a live still have huge influence over the plot. So just to give a quick breakdown, these are the two cycles. In a lore session, you begin with a read aloud. Oh, sorry, lore session, sorry. You begin with a read aloud. You read somebody's story aloud. Everyone celebrates. They self-assign story points. Then the teacher assigns a challenge point. Hey, if you include dialogue in your next, or maybe try first person next time instead of third, or try third person, not first. Then threads, themes, and dreams. This is where everyone discusses, okay, how did this story change the world? Are we all cool with that? Or do we want to incorporate this into our larger setting? This repeats while students are writing for all the lore sessions. And the majority of sessions are lore. You'll probably have 5 or 6 lore classes before you have one live session. So the lore all amplifies and rotates and builds up momentum until you get to the live. In the live, there is a hook or a read aloud. This is it's a visual with a story that acts as an exemplar story for the students. Then the kids get a chance to explore the scene. There's a series of questions that the kids get to answer. Then in crews, they get to make a move. This involves rolling the dice and seeing what happens, and coming up with the outcomes, triumphs and troubles. At the very end of the session, there are shout outs. The kids all get to shout each other out for cool things they did during the live session, and that feeds back into the lore. So live sessions amplify and inspire and give ideas for kids to use in the lore sessions, and lore sessions shape and give ideas to the lives. So what does this look like systemically? Characters are not composed of stats. I could say a lot about this, but I'll do it short. I don't want to know what your character is. I want to know who they are. I think one of the major problems with most role-playing games from a literary perspective is they focus you on ranking characters and giving them numbers as opposed to asking, who are they? What makes them interesting? I don't care what your strength score is. What I care is what matters about who you are. So this character sheet is designed to cultivate an authorial sense of what makes a character interesting in a story. So I need to know, what's your drive? What makes your character get up in the morning? What are they seeking for? What are they looking for? It's not a goal. A goal is achievable. A drive is what makes you want to achieve that goal. So example, if your goal might be, I want to be the best chef in the universe, that's fine. Why? Are you trying to prove to your dad that you're as good a chef as he ever was because you have some insecurity about that? Do you think that maybe if you cook the best food, everyone will love you because you never felt like you had people who cared? There's also your downfall. Downfalls are great because they cultivate a lot of grit and resilience in kids. Not that I'm fond of the ways those terms are used in education often, but your downfall helps you. Even your downfall will help you make roles in a live session. If you are, for example, hypersensitive, Cutie, this character was hypersensitive, great. That's going to mean you're going to notice subtle things and you can use it to pick up on clues, even if it also means you're going to shut down if there's too much noise going on, right? Same thing with a kid who's hyperactive or who is incredibly anxious. The anxious kid is going to notice when something scary is happening. The hyperactive kid is going to be really good at that physical scene, even if they can't sit still during class. So this goes through skill or power. This is how you solve problems. Gear is only ever a tag that it's only if that piece of gear matters to the character, that it's important for their story. I don't care if you have 10 meters of rope and a grappling hook and 3 pieces of jerky. That's boring. There's a reason that characters in stories don't dump out their pockets and count all the crap for the readers, because it's narratively incredibly uninteresting. I only care if you've got the one ring and you're traveling to try to throw it into the forges in Sauron's lands. That matters. But how much rope you have really doesn't. And this is all designed to get kids thinking about what makes my character interesting to tell stories about. And we begin with that. All my students hear this, all of the students in every class that's using Luna Uni. This is a game about telling good stories. Tell me what makes your character fun to tell stories about. Make a character you're excited to tell stories about. And this keeps kids from doing characters who are designed to win. Now, all of this is actually a way to scaffold up to literary analysis essays. So this is how Tom uses the character sheet to help kids build literary analysis essays, character analysis. So if you're reading a book, they'll stop and they'll say, okay, for example, they've been reading Amari and the Night Brothers. They read this every year. Great book, brilliant. And a classic example, they'll stop and they say, okay, what's Amari's drive? And some kid will say, well, she wants to find her brother. And Tom will say, okay, where do you see that? Give me the quote. And they'll find the quote. And he'll say, well, wait a minute. Is that a drive or a goal? Could she achieve that? And they'll be like, oh yeah, she could. And he's like, right, so that's not her drive. That's a goal she has. What's her drive? And eventually some kid will always come to, she doesn't want to be thought of as the same as her brother. She wants to be her own person. Yeah, so that's her drive. Once you've got a piece of evidence, a line that explains what that evidence, what the line is on the character sheet, the drive line, and an explanation of why the evidence proves that the line is true, the line is the claim. The explanation is your analysis. The quote is your evidence. It's one paragraph of a character analysis essay. So it's a way of thinking, and when they practice doing this, it becomes very natural for them to notice authors' craft when they're reading as well as when they're writing their own. I can speed up at any point. Please give me a time check. How are we doing? About 20 minutes in? Are we all right? Does anyone want to take a breath, ask a question, run to the restroom, take a sip of a beverage? Does anybody need anything? You're all okay? Okay.
You're great. Thank you. Just please proceed.
Okay, will do. So the major resource in Luna Uni and in all Stories RPG games is something called story points. Story points are self-assessed. So one of the things a lot of, I don't know, this is one of my favorite things. If you've taught kids at all, and of course all of us have been in school in one form or another, there's something I like to call the extra credit conundrum. Kids will turn themselves into pretzels for extra credit. They will do anything for extra credit. They will beg, borrow, steal, anything. And if they see a giant plate perfectly set with a huge pile of normal points on it, they won't even stoop to pick it up. And I've heard so many teachers talk about this, like, why is it they'll do anything for extra credit, but they won't do a thing when it's an assigned piece of work? And there's a simple answer from a design perspective. The regular assignment credit has a fail condition. You can work your tail off on that assignment and still do badly. Whereas extra credit is all win and zero potential for lose. There's absolutely nothing negative attached to extra credit. Story points take advantage of this. Story points are not attached to a grade. Every time kids read in class, everybody puts their hands up, say hands in the air, say ready, set, clap like crazy. And everyone has to clap as hard as they can. They do this for about 8 seconds. I actually have timed it. It's about 8 seconds. And then I say, stop. And the minute they stop, I'll look at the kid and say, all right, how many? And the scale is very simple. We say 1 is a, I farted. 1 means you didn't have a good week, whatever. You just wrote, it's fine. You still get 1 point. There's no fail. 2 is for meh. Meh means, it's not my best work. It's not my worst. Maybe I left something out. Maybe it's weak. 3 points is, it's a story. It has a beginning, middle, and end. It develops some characters. There's some plot moments. It's a story. 4 is, I'm pushing myself. I'm really like, there's something here that I'm proud of. I did something. 5 means, I always jokingly say, behold the glory of my story. It's the moment when you really know. You leveled up. This is your moment. I tend to think a 5-point scale is one of the best to use for almost any evaluation, because anything else gets very granular and difficult to think through. 5 points is real simple. Weak, medium, strong with 2 half points. That's all a 5-point scale is, right? But these story points are a meta currency in the game. You can buy, during a live session, a reroll for 2 points. So you blow a roll and everybody's like, oh no! Then you can look around. If you don't have any story points, you'll be like, I blew it. We're all doomed. And some kid in the back who's been writing away like a maniac, but not saying much, will go, I got 2. Now, the great part about this is the kid who helps and the kid who receives the help both feel good about the interaction. There's no condescension. There's no looking down on, oh, I'm going to save you. I'm going to help you. It's more like, yes, we got the points for the reroll. So this is also crucial because it creates community and obligation. The minute that kid has given the extra story points, the kid who didn't have any, the teacher just says, hey, you owe them for next time. Make sure to write this week. All of a sudden, the kid who never wrote has a reason to do so. Midge, please.
Yeah, I don't know if we are going to say that later, but in my head, I had the question, how do they get the points? Do they get it assigned from a teacher, or do they give it to themselves? Is it like a peer thing? Okay.
Yes, I said that in the beginning, but perhaps I wasn't clear enough. Let me make this very clear. I always say this, and students have the hardest time. It makes me laugh. I'll say, only you can give yourself story points. And they all look like, and like, guaranteed, there are all these students who are like, well, what do you think? And I'm like, it doesn't matter. And they go, and I always explain, this is about you becoming comfortable being honest about your own work and thinking about where you are. Because ultimately, it doesn't matter what I think. What matters is how well you know your own work. I will have the opportunity to give you challenge points. Now, that's the fun part. This all happens after a read aloud. So we read the story out loud. Either they read it or I'll read it for them if they're uncomfortable. And then we clap. And then I'll say to the student, how many? And I'll remind them of the scale if they need a reminder. And then they'll self-assess. Students almost universally undersell their work. There's an example here from a class. So I don't know if you can read this. I had Cutie from Crew 3, if you want to read her backstory to the class, then asked how many story points she thinks she deserved. She said 2. The class freaked out and was like, that's a 5. It was so, this is good. He didn't finish the word. So she went with the 5 and I gave her the challenge point. Right when she finished, I saw all the other students have an uh-huh moment. They all turned and now I'm getting some really good stuff. This is the other piece. Students are not writing for you anymore. They're writing for 2 things, each other and themselves. The each other part is crucial because when they see their story get read out loud and other kids are like, oh, or they're like, ooh, or they're like, whoa, because something happened in the plot that was exciting. Something funny happened and everybody laughed. Immediately, and this is something that to me is unbelievable. This is another element of school being badly designed as a game. We don't create opportunities for peer celebration of academic skills in classrooms. The only person who reads the story is the teacher, and usually the assignment is specifically designed for something the teacher wants them to say. And as a result, students never get what they most crave, which is oxytocin and dopamine and a sense of belonging when they're celebrated by their peers. So story points take out the bite, the judgment of grades, and they allow students to learn how to self-assess. But most importantly, they create a culture of peer celebration surrounding writing that is self-reinforcing. Kids get really excited to write, even kids who normally don't, because they know everybody's gonna love it when they read it out loud. And there's no fail condition. They're gonna get cheered for, even if they had a bad week and they just wrote something that was ridiculous and short. So there's no fail condition, but huge amounts of win. And those rewards are the kind that they value. Did that answer? Was that cool? Sorry, I get excited about this stuff and then I have to check in and be like, did I go too far? Thank you. So challenge points. This is where differentiation for the teacher comes in. So you might be thinking, okay, but how do I push kids? The real answer is you just say, hey, whatever it is that you notice this kid needs to work on. If it's, a kid who's struggling with basics, you can say, okay, next time I'll give you a challenge point. You get 1 extra story point if You just capitalize the beginning of your sentences. Please. Suddenly, something that is a tedious, boring, extra, dumb piece of work becomes free story points for me to get extra rerolls and buy lines for my character. That's the other piece. 3 points, 3 story points lets you buy a new line for your character. So you can buy extra abilities. And kids are often very motivated. You'll meet some character in a live session and they'll be like, oh, I love that one robot guy. And they'll be like, I want to bond with him. I want him to be my best friend. And I'll be like, do you have the story points? And the kid will be like, I'm writing this week. And I'll be like, go get it. And it's wonderful because the incentive is all about the fun and it's about the story. None of it is about the academics, even though it is absolutely reinforcing the academics. But this allows you to differentiate upwards. With my top of the room kids, I get to say things like, hey, I want you to switch voice on this one. Or I really would like it if you would try some poetry in your next piece. Because the kids who are at the top of the room still deserve to be pushed. And this allows you to attach a non-grade related reward that is socially rewarding to absolutely anything that each student needs to learn. Next thing. Ta-da! So this is me going over everything I've mentioned already. But here are the prices. 2 points are our reroll. That's a huge incentive for collaboration. Students who don't care very much about writing will be very excited to have rerolls during drama clocks because they don't like to fail rolls and they like that feeling of I have the power to change the story and the momentum will come back to me. 3 points are a line. That's a power up. You know, if a kid's like, well, I want the power to blah, blah, blah. I'm like, great. Okay, cool. Write a story. Get the story points. Buy it. And they'll be like, I will. So students who otherwise wouldn't will. And then specials. And I can talk a little bit about specials, but this is a mechanical element that allows kids a way to raise the result of a roll once per session. It's their superpower. It's their once per game, big deal thing. And I can explain the dice mechanics as well if you guys would like. I often don't mention them until the last, and I probably should have mentioned them earlier. But here we go. We'll talk about crew moves in live scenes so that we can talk about the dice mechanic. So one big problem with live scenes in a lot of folks' practice in the classroom, how do you deal with a humongous group? Well, the first problem is a lot of people are trying to do something that they shouldn't try to do with a huge group. Don't play D&D with 20 kids. That's just dumb. By which I mean, and I want to be very clear, when I say dumb, I mean self-destructive or self-defeating. Don't do things that are kind of guaranteed to fail. Now, can you do it? Sure. I'm sure some people have come up with some brilliant ways to do it. But that's a little like saying, I can use a wrench to hammer a nail. Yeah, that's cool, but like, if you had a hammer, it'd be a lot easier, man. So this is a hammer. This is a design that is purposely for larger groups. So there's 2 ways to do this. One is to do the fishbowl, and I give different options because different teachers like to do it different ways and feel more or less comfortable with different approaches. Fishbowl is you have a live crew, which is 4 to 5 kids in the middle who are playing their characters actively in the scene. And then the kids on the outside act as narrators. They both can tap in to jump in, but they also can do things like, okay, what if this happens? Hey, I think this character should do or say this. And this allows some kids who feel nervous when they're in the spotlight to jump into non-player character roles and then fall in love with them. There have been a lot of characters who have come out of that fishbowl approach in Tom's classroom who've become class favorites, like Sprinkles, the janitor, although he requires you to call him the sustainability systems manager. Does not accept janitor. So the other approach, and this is the one that I like to use with larger groups, is crew moves. Crew moves mean each of your little groups of kids is in a crew of 4 to 5 kids. And each of them has their own slide deck on which they have their character slides and all the stories they've been writing. That way, there's not a single class deck that gets overburdened with too many slides and becomes difficult to load, right? Now, what you do with crew moves is you say, okay, You set the number of triumphs to succeed very high, but then you say, okay, work in your crew to decide how you're each going to help. Normally, a single character will make a roll by saying, here's what I'm going to do. And they get to use up to 3 of their lines to explain why they'd be good at doing it. So let's take Cutie here. Let's say Cutie is going to have to try to land a spaceship that's crashing, right? She might say, okay, I'm going to grab the steering wheel and I'm nimble. You see my skill, my power? I'm nimble, I'm fast. So I'm going to be good at pulling and pushing that steering wheel. I look out for my fish, Bubbles, and I really want to save Bubbles. Like if this thing crashes, Bubbles is going to go up in flames. So that's 2. And the third is I want to find belonging. I'm going to save everybody else on this ship, and they are going to accept me when I do that. Okay, you now have 3 dice. That's 3d6. So you would roll 3 6-sided dice, and the highest score determines what happens. So if Cutie were to roll 3d6, highest roll is a 6. That's great. That's a triumph. That means you get exactly what you want and there's no problem. Now, if you were to roll and get highest score as a 4, 4 and 5 are triumph with a trouble. You get what you want, but there's a problem. Maybe you crash and everybody takes a little damage. They're banged up. Everyone loses a heart. Maybe there's a problem. You landed, but you landed in the middle of a lake of lava. Now the ship is melting. Everyone has to climb out and figure out how to get out. If you get your highest roll as a 1 to 3, then you fail and there's trouble. You don't do what you want and there are problems. So in a crew move, instead of having a single character roll 3 dice, you say, all right, decide how you're going to work together. You got 4 to 5 kids, right? Each of you can use at least 1 line from your sheet. And then you all roll 1 die together. And you're looking for more triumphs. If you get multiple 6s, you can have extra triumphs. They're bonus triumphs, the equivalent of a crit, right? So that's how crew moves work. And what that does is it gets the kids really comfortable coming up with plans. They'll be like, okay, Cutie's nimble. She's gonna be pulling on the steering wheel. I have hyper tech engineer as my skill or power. So I'm going to go work on the engine and try to overcharge it so that we can like blast downwards. So that's 2. That guy has stretchy arms. He's going to literally reach outside and try to grab onto some of these giant trees that we're crashing between to slow us down. And that's how they learn to work together narratively on coming up with plans. This moves us to drama clocks. So drama clocks are a collective challenge that says, all right, all of you have to score this many triumphs or something terrible happens. Now, we always say this. A drama clock says it's a narrative split. It's a fork in the road, right? It says if you pull this off and you score the right number of triumphs, great. Things go the way you want and the problem is passed. If you fail, it doesn't mean you're all doomed. It doesn't mean you're all dead, but it does mean that the story just got more dramatic. And I often say that the moment I know that kids really understand narrative is the moment when some kid raises their hand. You know, all the kids are like arguing about how they're going to fix this drama clock. Maybe we should this, maybe we should that. And some kid goes like this. I'll say yes. And they go, hey, can we fail this? Like on purpose? And all the other kids will go, what? And they'll go, no. But think about it. It could be really cool if we crash and then we're like under the surface and we have to like fight our way out. And everybody will be like, actually, that sounds really fun. So the whole point we always make is this is about telling a good story and drama is part of a good story, right? So the other purpose of drama clocks, in addition to creating this ramp of engagement and drama, it's to get them to blow all their story points. So if you set the number of triumphs they need to score artificially high, like example, let's say I've got 5 kids in a crew. And I'll say, all right, you guys need 10 triumphs to succeed at this drama clock. And the kids all do some quick mental math and they're like, wait a minute, that's 2 triumphs apiece. I'm like, yep. That means every single one of you has to roll a triumph, a 6, and then raise it using your special. Your special lets you raise the category, right? So it makes a fail with a trouble into a trouble with a triumph. It makes a trouble with a triumph into a triumph. It makes a single triumph into a double, or a double into a triple, or a triple into a quadruple, which is the maximum possible number, right? Now, all of a sudden, every roll, everybody's cheering or groaning and then spending story points for the reroll. So this bankrupts them on story points, and it means that they go into the next lore cycle going, all right, everybody write. We got to get a lot before our next drama clock. So drama clocks are there to both ramp drama and also bankrupt the story points. All of this also follows another structure. So the lives are structured using the 4-act East Asian cinema structure. It's often used, people know it by the Japanese term, Kishotenketsu. So Kishotenketsu is a narrative structure that I find a lot more useful, interesting, fun than the Western rising action and climax and resolution. I don't like that system. Partly, I don't like the fact that conflict is used as the critical problem. In Kishotenketsu, it's the twist. The twist is what the critical moment is. It doesn't say it must be conflict. It just says something must change and surprise you. Something must shift in the narrative. So each of the live scenes is structured using Kishotenketsu. There are 4 parts to a live scene. There's the read aloud hook. There's a series of questions that the kids get to ask and answer each other to build and develop the scene. Then there's the moment where they make a move or the drama clock hits and they roll. That's the twist. And depending on what happens with their rolls, you get different resolutions. Now, the students then get to use that same structure to write lives for one another. So by the end of the class, they are writing up lives. They'll design a planet and then come up with a reason that there's a problem on that planet. And then one crew will split up and run that live session for the other crews. And this allows them to take on the role of what we call the teller, the storyteller, who facilitates things. It's never you're in charge. It's always you are helping the others explore the world and tell a story together. Everything is consensual and everything is, do we want to go this way or this way? And of course, we use the X card. So finally, rubrics and scoring, because yes, you do need some sort of evidence, right, of learning. The lore rubric, it's got 4 categories, and it is ranked from 1 to 4. This is designed for the American system of grading in grade schools. So up through 6th grade, they use a 1, 2, 3, 4 rubric. 1 being they're not there yet, 2 being they're developing, 3 being they're at grade level, 4 being they're excelling. These are all written in ways that face students, so the students can understand what they mean, and the students get to choose the pieces that they are scored with, because one of the nice things about this procedure is they're building a portfolio. Every lore session, they're writing more, and then they get to choose their favorites. They also get to write at the end of the semester a paper comparing earlier work to later work and discussing how they've changed and developed as authors. So there's a meta learning element to this. There's also a live rubric. The live rubric is all connected with the 21st century skills. English is all language arts, right? We all wish to teach speaking and listening, right? We want to teach critical thinking, communication, collaboration. These are all things that are involved on rubrics that we are supposed to be responsible for, but they're very difficult to target with assignments that don't feel a little bit stressful. You have to give this presentation to the rest of the class, and it's not about something you're really excited about. Good luck. Those live sessions allow the kids both to rank themselves and also the teacher to track development in their speaking, listening, collaboration, and critical thinking. It's something that's very unique to role-playing games that makes a wonderful addition to a classroom. It really feels, I don't know. I mentioned earlier that Tom says he would never, he'll stop teaching with this approach when kids stop liking games. I feel very similarly. I don't know how I did it before. Because this makes it so much fun and it makes it so effective. for kids developing as presenters and as collaborators. Final piece, SEL impacts. I have never seen classes become as communally connected to one another as I have when they use this approach. It's that simple. There's a lot of research showing that stories really do change brain architecture and that they feel real. This is the reason that the stories we consume, the stories we tell ourselves and each other, shape who we become. This is central to all language arts, right? By giving kids a world that belongs to them and letting them tell stories that matter to them, you do a number of things that help them both connect with each other and explore a sense of self. I will mention this briefly. If anyone out there teaches personal essays, please don't take this personally, but I'm about to say something about the personal essay. Personal essays are a form of emotional abuse. And I'm gonna let everyone sit with that because a lot of people don't like hearing that. Especially in the United States, we are pushed to require personal essays at literally every single phase of student learning. And the reason that we are asked to do this is that there is this very misguided idea that teaching personal essays will somehow make students better at writing college application essays and also make them better at thinking about themselves. I'm a 45-year-old man and I have taught essays for years. If you were to walk up to me on the street and say, "Hi, I'd like you to write me a story. It's got to be about your life. I want it to be vulnerable and honest. I want you to discuss a time you failed, and then I want you to tell me how you grew and learned as a result," I would tell you to go stuff it. And that's me. Saying the same thing to a student who doesn't know who they are yet, who's still experimenting with identity, requiring them to share that with you, a stranger, when they don't even necessarily know what about their life is important or why, who they really think they are or want to be, that's deeply invasive and emotionally questionable. Asking them to share it in front of other kids, that's a horrible kind of social doom. You can't expect kids to, the kids who write something that's ridiculous and small and dumb, I actually am like, yep, no, I don't blame you. That was a smart move. That's how I'd respond too. Letting them experiment with fictional selves allows them freedom to explore who they might want to be. And inevitably students do, as all authors do, ground their writing in themselves. But it gives them the agency to decide when they want to share that with you as a mentor. So at some point, if a student says, "You know that one kid's dad? My dad's kind of like that." Okay, the door's now open. They decided they did want to talk about it, but that was their choice. That was not you forcing them to share it. And it allows them to develop all the linguistic skills they'll need for personal essays. If you're writing in first person, you're doing exactly what a college application essay asks you to do. Writing a fictional narrative about a made-up character. Because no matter how honest your personal essay is, it's a version of yourself, yes? And if you've had chances to experiment with different versions of yourself, you're going to be much better at fictionalizing your reality and discussing it with others. So finally, this is a nonviolent setting and it's a nonviolent approach. Everything in this game is centered around the idea that drama is fun, but violence isn't. And I have my own reasons for that, and we can discuss them if you'd like. But I'll put it this way. If you were to play through a sexually explicit scene in a role-playing game with children, I think everyone here would know that was incredibly inappropriate. Why on earth does anyone think playing through an explicit murder is somehow acceptable? I don't know the answer to that question, but some people seem very attached to violence, and that's the way I like to frame it so that I can frame it for how it matters to me. And I have ways of explaining this to kids too. I actually included a video at the end that'll kind of do that. So there's a lot of scaffolding built in. They build up. You can see the Kisho Tenketsu here. The key is on the left-hand page. It's the illustration plus the read aloud. This is from a play-at-home game. There's also a podcast that goes with the game, and you can actually listen to the podcast with the students alongside playing. And some of the podcast episodes are about how to make better characters, how to create plot lines, how to create worlds. So those are supplementary materials that come along with the course. Explore the scene, that's the show. You can see the twist, make a move, and then the resolution, triumphs and troubles. So next steps. One of my initial playtest teachers got reassigned. He was sent to math and science from English language arts, and he was initially very frustrated. He had kind of a breakdown actually this year in the fall, where he went to his friend Tom. They had been teaching this approach together and said, I can't stand teaching all these incredibly boring pieces of math. The kids can't stand it, and I can't take it anymore. And Tom looked at him and said, so teach it with Luna Uni. and he looked at him and he was like, I don't know why I didn't do that. So he started. He has been making word problems that are related to Luna Uni, and because these connect him with his compatriots' classroom, the kids are extra involved. We've also been talking about developing an approach using math points that allows you to gain the effect of story points for doing extra problems. So you've got a free win. You practice the problems, doesn't matter if they're right or wrong. However many you did, you're building up more points for the live sessions. So takeaways. If anybody ever tells you that, I have teachers ask me this sometimes and I have to sort of reorient them. They'll say, well, okay, I get that they're having fun. How do I know they're learning? And I'll say, if they're not having fun, you already know they won't learn. They often have a moment where they're like, but it's true. And every teacher you say this to goes, yeah, no, that's true. Nothing's worse than going to a class you can't stand. Second piece is mechanics matter. Design matters. You cannot approach a classroom with a game that is not designed for it. And unfortunately, the design of school is not well built for making kids happy. So it needs to be rebuilt. Implementation is key. You have to have support for doing this. If your administration doesn't want you to do this, you won't. There's no way you're going to push it through, right? It also helps to have other teachers you're working with and online community supporting you. So I meet with my teachers and they meet with me pretty regularly. And that's one way in which we keep supporting each other in implementation. Then this last piece, classroom RPGs require schema shifts from teachers. Kids don't have a problem with this. Teachers do. Some admin does as well. I have one teacher who started using Luna Uni who was a D&D person. And we had this one coaching meeting in which she said, yeah, they got into this situation and they just couldn't succeed. And they were stuck in the mouth of this giant creature. And then they succeeded at this thing, but then that didn't work. And I said, wait a minute. Were you having them roll this entire time? And she said, well, yeah. And I said, why? And she looked at me and she was like, oh, in D&D, if you don't roll, it's a win-lose game, right? You can't win unless you roll a certain number. In this game, we always say rolling is about drama. If it's not exciting to roll, don't roll. If you need to fast forward, fast forward. This is a game about playing a good story. It's not a game about winning and losing. And so she needed to shift the way she approached it, not because she didn't understand it as a teacher, but because as a gamer, she had the wrong schema in place. And that goes with the trad learning mindset. Well, wait a minute. If we're not telling them what to do, can we make sure that, yes, you can. Take a deep breath. It's okay. So final things, these are next steps. We're still building community. If anybody would like to use this approach, please let me know. I would happily share it with you and coach you on it and chat with you about it for free. I have a book that with all the digital tools attached to it, including the Pinterest board that's full of illustrations for kids to pick from to make their characters with. I will be releasing that before the end of the year, so it's coming up. And I'm going to be presenting at South by Southwest in spring, and there will be a physical book attached. I would love to find researchers who would be willing to take a look at what we're doing, whether they're here, there, or anywhere. I also have a lot of video supports. I won't play these. But this is one of the things I've learned from implementation that my teachers need. They need coaching. And if I can't coach individually every teacher who's using this, then I got to create video series that give them helping hands when they need them. So that's all I have to say. And I would love to take any questions or whatever works. Oh, there's questions. Midge. One question. Are there any translations in the work? No. Do you want to translate it? Because I would love someone to translate. It'd be lovely if somebody would. I would be thrilled. So would love to.
Let me think about that.
Okay. Waldritter Inn is Martin, yes or no?
Sasha, that was me.
Oh, Sasha. Okay, Sasha. You had a.
I was also thinking, why not? I would, if I want to use it, I know I would like have to have translated.
Please, if you would like to, it's all yours. I'll work with you on it. Catherine can vouch on this. I will happily give you whatever you are willing to use, as long as you're willing to keep in touch and tell me how it's going, because that's what matters to me as an educator and as a designer. I see two hands. I see Olaf has one up, and then I don't know if your name is actually Waldritter or like, because I don't know if you're like a wood knight or if it's a, yeah.
Chester, yeah. My name is Toby. Actually, I'm using another account for this work. I'm quite new to this kind of work. It's pretty interesting. But I must say I'm pretty inspired by your work because
thank you.
With your story points, you created a cryptocurrency that actually does everything right that our money does wrong. It boosts creativity. You make sure that people who use it burn it right away and get creative on piling up some new to create more. That's great. You know what I mean, right? And
well, it's interesting because like it's interesting to hear it framed as cryptocurrency, because I would say it's a resource that is designed to be inherently a positive communal glue. It's a socially focused resource where you build it by doing things that are socially rewarding. So gaining more of it is inherently rewarding. And then spending it is also inherently rewarding and connects you with people. The reward is not arbitrary or divorced from any kind of real world return. Rather, it's connected with community. And so when you earn it, you feel good because the community supports you. And when you spend it, you feel good because the community supports you. So the goal is communal connections more than anything else.
Yeah, I just wanted to compare it to the bad frame.
I see.
I like it very much. And I missed a lot of the details and the mechanics that you use, but I'm pretty interested. I can also translate. I'm pretty good with the English stuff.
Right
and
on.
This momentum cycles from the writers and the that you described, that was pretty interesting. And I will take a deeper look at your product. I'm pretty and you presented it in this emotion. It's like, wow, California. Okay.
I don't know if it's California. I think it's just me. I'm a nerd. By which I mean I love what I do and I get very excited to share it. I'm always like, let me tell you, it's really exciting. So thank you. I appreciate it so much.
I just wanted to say, actually, congratulations. The product is great. I'll take a deeper look. And I'll maybe contact you and see what we can.
Please feel free. I just shared the screen again. Everyone, please don't hesitate to reach out literally for any reason. Even if you're just like, hey, I'd love to have a conversation with you about any of these topics. I would be delighted to. Olaf, did you want to say something?
Okay.
I have a question. You mentioned one of the live session versions was that you have people inside the ring and outside of the ring. And you said that people outside of the ring can take influence on the story. Is there a veto right?
Oh, yes. Everyone has. I don't know if you saw, but I'll put it back up. We established the X card very strongly right at the beginning of the game. And I usually start by explaining that I X card violence. Person-on-person violence, I directly X card. And I explain my reasons for it. I always say, listen, you don't have to explain your reasons when you X card something. They're yours. You just have to tell us, this makes me uncomfortable. And we defend that idea. No one uses the X card frivolously in my games. It's always because they're like, no. And one thing I really love is we always have like little notes. So you can pass a note up. And whenever I'm online, I love that you can do direct messages. So students will direct message me and say, can we X card this? And then I'll just say, okay, we're X carding this. And no one will ask who said it. It's just gone. But the reason that we do that is, and this is very, very important, the way we establish it is, the story should never be more important than we are. We should always be more important to one another than the story is. So we always have to keep each other safe and ourselves safe. So that's why we X card. But I X card violence and I explain it. I've taught in a lot of different schools. One of my first schools I taught at, if anyone's had, I always say it's very interesting to me that in narratives, we often frame violence as positive, glorious, heroic, transformative. If you've ever experienced real violence in your life, it is none of those things. I have worked in a school which, in the 4 years I taught there, 1 student was shot every year. Of those students, 2 died. 1 was left with crippling injuries. Nothing about that was in any way positive. Instead of solving problems, violence creates and cycles of problems that perpetuate. So I also think, and I have this, it's linked in the video, I also think violence is narratively lazy, which I share with students. Say this is a way for you to escape having to do the real work of a writer, creating compelling characters. You throw a violent situation in and then, oh, there's drama. Unless you have made me care about your characters first, your inclusion of violence is a cheap and also boring trick. I'm already falling asleep during your Marvel movie. So, yeah, X card is very important. And I don't like to do lines and veils for one reason. I love lines and veils are a great concept, but lines and veils often shut student creativity down rather than encouraging it. Because what happens is they start focusing on what they don't like. And that becomes really intense. They're like, okay, and I also don't feel comfortable with this. And by the time they're finished writing the list up, they're thinking about all the things they don't like. They're not thinking about, ooh, I'm so excited to play my character because he's got a hoverboard and I've decided he's nerdy about black holes. He's got a black hole generator. That's his invention he created. I didn't discuss the setting for Luna Uni. It's a utopian future in which the kids play incredibly inspired young minds who happen to be dangerous. They do dangerous things like creating black hole generators. And because this is a utopian future, they're not going to imprison them or you know, any of those things. They're just going to take them to Luna Uni, which is an entire moon that has been turned into the universe's center for radical learning. And so they get sent to school. And Luna Uni is run by loonies, which is, of course, in English, a synonym for people who are a little off. And so if they go there and say, I want to make a black hole generator, you know, on the core worlds, people would say, oh my gosh, no. On Luna Uni, they'll say, great, what do you need? Let's build it. So that's the idea is they get to be transgressive and punk rock and fun, but also connected with learning and a positive community. Catherine,
Okay,
please.
I hate to step
Yeah, we
in,
don't
step
have to
in.
be, the time is over.
Yeah,
I
the
think.
Apologies,
our
apologies.
time is running out, and we want to do the last of this program for today, a little get together. And thank you so much for this interesting session and all the insights.
Thank you.
Okay, I
Great to
will
have you all here.
I will stop now on the video. I just
The record.
record, yes.